All right, while you guys are pulling that up, hopefully this is the easiest thing I have you do today. Let's sum this guy up real quick. We start a couple guys hanging out. What are they doing, these guys that are hanging out?
Playing baseball.
Not yet. Also, that's sticky, dear God.
They're talking about
They're telling stories, which we learn are about baseball. What else are they doing? They're doing one more thing. Drinking. Jack and Coke from coffee mugs. From coffee mugs, that's an interesting detail. Like I say it all the time. You may not know what to do with every detail, but you should note them. Jack and Coke out of coffee mugs, like that is a very specific way to drink. Yeah? And I think if you pushed on it, and we don't have time, we're not going to do it today, but if you pushed on it, I think that does tell you, it definitely tells you, first of all, where they're drinking. It's not at a bar. They don't serve you in coffee mugs. But I think it also tells you a little bit about the place they're in, or the kind of world they're in, to be drinking in this way. But anyway, they're doing that. What else? Oh, the rest of the first stanza is mostly devoted to what? The speaker goes to great lengths to kind of give us a look at what in this first stanza?
lives.
Whose lives?
The players.
Yeah, the guys that are telling these stories. This is when they were younger, but what kind of guys are they? What information do we get?
Miners.
Zinc mines and
Oil rigs.
oil rigs. Very particular kind of work. Okay. What else do they do? Maybe after work.
Play on the guitars.
They listen to steel guitar music. It's wanging in their ears, so they're hearing it. What else are they doing after work?
Drinking.
So they're drinking long beers. There's that term again, by the way, from the very first day. And they're hearing guitar. Where are they at, probably? A bar. In this, they're at a bar. Good. We hear more about their lives. What else do we hear about?
Their wives are not happy.
Their wives are not happy. Well, they're complaining about what?
They ain't got money and their stuff's broken.
They're complaining about money and broken Kenmores.
Their lawnmowers.
Kenmore is a company that make a lot of stuff, mostly appliances actually. So like oven, washer dryer, stuff like that. They're one of those, they make damn near everything, so they may make lawnmowers as well. But what else? What else do we learn about their lives? Where do they live?
Commerce, Oklahoma.
More specifically, but very good.
Midwest.
Do what?
Little homes.
Little what kind of homes?
You're renting.
Little white rent homes.
They're renting. Which is interesting. Again, I'm going to stress this a lot today, but understand everything the speaker tells you, the poet had to decide to keep. He could have deleted any of this, right? So he wants to point out to us real quick that they're renting. That may or may not be significant, but chances are pretty good he wants that there for a reason, right? So something to think about. We're going to come back. We're going to sum everything up, and then we're going to come back to this stuff, okay? Second stanza. We actually start to get into the game. Right before we do that, though, we meet somebody. Who do we meet?
15-year-old.
All right. And he looks like he can handle himself well enough. They say, like, all right, let's play. Why do they need that kid, first of all?
Because they're one person short.
The other team is one person short. So they bring this kid. They're like, hey, he's just a kid. He'll just play, Ha-ha, right? Because it's obviously a trick. So anyway, they're warming up. They get ready to play. And it turns out the kid is pretty good. He's pretty good. He homers every time he's up to bat. Even, I believe, on the third homer, if memory serves, he switches to the other side of the plate. Which, part of what we're going to do today is background stuff. I understand it's 2021. Baseball isn't as popular as it would have been like in the 50s when this is taking place. So some of you are like, I don't know what any of this means. I think we're all pretty aware of what a home run is. When he switches sides of the plate, the pitcher hasn't changed. That's something you normally do based on what hand the pitcher pitches with. This is just him fucking with everybody. That's all that is. That's him going, oh, you think that's all? Watch this. Yeah, I can do it from here too. That's it. That's like a middle finger a little bit to the team he's playing against. So, and again, he's 15. These are 30, 40-year-old men. Like, pretty fucking cocky dude. Anyway, he keeps homering. They're getting more and more upset about it. Eventually, they lose the game. And then you learn who this kid is. What's his name? Mickey Mantle. Not, again, 2021. Not all of you probably know who that is. But if you didn't, you should have done what?
Researched it.
You should have just looked him up. Who's Mickey Mantle?
Probably one of the greatest switchers of all time.
You could,
He is the greatest switcher of all time.
yeah, but I mean, he's probably one of the greatest baseball players of all time, right?
Was, yes.
Hall of Fame, very well known. Let me see, I can probably do this. Samantha?
Rebecca.
Damn! What's your name?
Michaela.
Okay. I took a shot, man. All right. What it is, hang on, I don't want to forget Michaela. Samantha.
Yeah.
See? Because you sit right over there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a space, everything for me is like where things are. And look, she's right, you guys are just messing with me. Anyway, okay, that's fine. You're here, which is what matters. All right. Where were we? Oh, so Mickey Mantle's really good. The best context I can think to put this in so you guys would follow, it'd be like if a buddy of yours, like their dad was telling a story of like, I guess 20 years ago now, they lost a pickup game of basketball to this 15-year-old kid. And then years later, or like at the time, they're like, oh, LeBron James, man, you're pretty good. Hey, I'll see you later. And then years later, they see him on TV. They're like, oh, LeBron James smoked us when he was a teenager. Like, it's that level of just really, really good since they were young, right? And you just happen to meet that person in their given vocation, right? It's that kind of a story. So anyway, they got smoked by Mickey Mantle when he was a teenager. And then the rest of the poem, for a long time, like, look, we learn about Mickey Mantle here on the page. And then the rest of the poem is kind of chewing on what that means, why they lost, and how, and what that says about them. Ultimately is what the rest of the poem is doing. Okay? So we're gonna dig into that.
I kind of thought the second half of the poem was kind of mean-spirited, I'm going to be honest with you.
We'll talk about it. We gotta get there first. All right, so to begin with, in an effort to save us some time, I'm gonna direct this initially, and then if you guys notice things as we go, obviously we can branch off. But like 2 or 3 lines in, I would hope that you either underlined, circled, like there's some really interesting language, really interesting idea, 2 or 3 lines into this poem. Does anybody have an idea of what I might be talking about?
You talk about how they say nuzzling the facts and mauling the truth.
That is a crazy thing to say.
I thought that was really interesting.
Like for one, like just on the surface, nuzzling the facts, mauling the truth, those verbs are strange as hell.
Those are dog verbs.
Or cats.
Or I've never heard of a cat. I have owned a cat. It's never mauled me.
They'll damn sure try. If they show you their belly, it's a trick. Anyway, but we know what nuzzle is, we know what maul is, those are 2 very different things. But what's interesting about that, nuzzle the facts, maul the truth. I thought they're different here somehow, right? That's noteworthy to me. For instance, what's a fact? How would you define that? Do you think?
Something that really, truly happened.
That truly happened? See, it's even in your damn definition. So already that tells us something is strange here. The speaker is drawing a line between facts and truth. But I think most of the time when we think about the facts, we think about the truth, right? So something's going on here. 2, 3 lines in. That should set off those alarm bells. You may not know exactly what to do with that yet. We're very early in the poem. But at this stage, underline that stuff. Make a note. Put that in your inventory type of thing, right? That's got to be important. Facts and truth and how they're different. All right. So there, Deeper into the first stanza, there's only 3 in the poem. We're talking about their houses, their wives, their work. What kind of work is this? Zinc mines and oil rigs. He spends a whole line giving that to us, so it seems important. What kind of work is that? Blue collar, right? We've talked about these kinds of guys before.
Harper's Ferry.
Yeah. Now those guys worked in a steel mill. But again, in our collective consciousness anyway, right? The narratives we talk about, don't we just view all those kind of guys as the same kind of guy, right? They wear coveralls. They work at a place with sparks. Like you just kind of see it as the same sort of thing. What kind of work is that? Hard work. Like manual labor, real hard work that they do. And then after work, they go to the bar, probably with some buddies from work, most likely. And then we hear about their home life. And here we can actually talk about what it means, not just sum it up. What was the deal with their houses? Little white rent houses. Why do you think the speaker gives us that? Why does it matter if they rent?
Showing their income.
Do what?
They're showing their income, their low level.
Why?
Poverty.
Why? But how do you know that based off their house?
They can't afford down payment to buy an actual house.
They don't own a house, or they're not making payments even. They're just renting. Now some of you are like, hey, I rent, but yeah, you're 20 or whatever. It's like acceptable for you to do that. When you're in your 40s, the narratives say, you're supposed to own a house. You're supposed to. Why? And you can compound this with the wives complaining about money and broken Kenmores. So they don't have enough money to fix anything that's broken. What's that got to do with these guys? Yeah.
Well, the fact that they're renting a house in general, it's like they feel like they have to rent a house because they're in their 40s. Basically, they have to rent a house. They have to rent a house, as in just to keep up the image of the American dream. Yeah, I totally own this house. Legit, I have a house and wife and kids. Basically, they feel basically there's some amount of shame to it. Basically, deep down.
What are they ashamed of? I don't think you're wrong. Let's try to pinpoint that real quick. And if it helps, again, we talked about this a little bit with Martin's Ferry. Remember that line, proud fathers ashamed to go home? And they're like, well, what are they ashamed of at home? I think there is a similar thing going on here.
They're ashamed of basically they're ashamed because their life is kind of a lie. They're like, yeah, I live in a home, but I don't own a home like I'm supposed to.
Why are they supposed to?
Because that's the American dream. That's what they're.
That's what society expects.
Of who?
Hardworking
Hardworking American men.
Okay. Why the men specifically? Here in this poem was probably set in the 1950s.
Because it's the 50s and that is what the norm back then.
Why? For these men specifically?
Because men are the quote unquote they're the breadwinners.
They're supposed to provide
Yeah.
the house and the appliances that work and all that stuff, right? So in the first stanza, again, all the way back to Martin's Ferry, the way we talked about it, it's the same kind of life. That one was in Ohio, this was in Oklahoma. Same kind of thing. They have a really hard job, they go get beer after work with their buddies, probably, because they don't want to go home and face all of that they're ashamed of, because they haven't lived up to what they're supposed to be doing, according to the narrative, right, around masculinity at this point in time. Good. I mean, not good, but you know what I mean. All right. So when we get to the second stanza, now we're finally getting into the baseball game. It's going to be a little more fun, right? Let's look at this 15-year-old kid. They say at least he'll make a game. That's kind of how they introduce him. How do they describe him? We get a couple lines for this kid. They look at him. What do they notice first? Muscular. What else? We get some interesting description here. How else do they describe him?
They kind of knowing the way he goes to the room.
kind of knowing the way he holds a glove. What do you guys think that means?
Like he understands, he's got awareness and
Of what?
of baseball.
Okay, so like he knows how to play the game. Like real talk. If you threw a baseball glove at me, I would catch it and then go, do I put it? How do I? Like I don't really know how it works. I never played growing up. I played football and basketball. It wasn't my thing, right? But this kid very clearly knows how to play, which is going to be important because that's what they're doing. Okay. What else do we learn about him? Said his shoulders are loose. That tells us what? He's not nervous. Which again is worth noticing. He's 15. These are 30 and 40-year-old men. You would justifiably be nervous. But it seems this kid is cool. He knows how to play. Okay. Seems like he belongs. Which all on its own is noteworthy because it's kind of strange. He really shouldn't belong. Yeah? Okay. Got a thick neck. That says, I mean, he's as far as 15-year-olds go, he's in pretty good shape. Okay. What else do we learn about him? We learned two more things.
His face is under a clump of angelic blonde hair.
Angelic blonde hair is weird. For instance, if I noted you had blonde hair, you would go, okay. But then if I said, well, you have angelic blonde hair, you would want to report me or something. That's a weird thing to say about a person. We should note that. We're going to talk about that. But before, we missed one thing. Before angelic blonde hair, what about his face? We don't just note that he has a face.
His face is under?
What kind of face? A boy's face. So think about this for a second. The description of him we just got. Muscular, thick neck, he knows how the glove works and his shoulders are loose. But then that boy's face under the angelic clump of blonde hair, like those are two very different kinds of descriptions. Yeah? His body seems to suggest what? Like what does he look like if you don't look at his face? Yeah. Yeah. But then you see his face, you're like, oh, he's got a boy's face. Angelic blonde hair? What is that about? What are the connotations? Angelic. Do you think?
I just kind of
Bright,
think
yeah, I
the speaker
suppose.
might be glorifying him in a sense.
I mean, what are angels? What are connotatively? How might that get applied to this boy? Like we have this language. We don't use it all the time, but you might hear like, oh, she's an angel, he's an angel, you know, like what are we really saying?
That his hair is like really perfect and it's not
He can.
messy?
I mean, kind of, I guess. What other connotations do we have?
Could it be like it's trying to say that he's innocent in a way? Since like angels are seen as like pure.
For sure. Because it follows boy's face, right? But again, here we're drawing a line between innocence and experience. His body suggests, and the way he carries himself suggests, he's experienced. He knows things, at least baseball. But his face, under the hair, whatever that looked like, he's like, but he's not actually. He's still 15, he's still innocent, right? And what's important is, according to the speaker anyway, that's what these guys notice too. They see his body first, like, well, can he play? And they look at him, they're like, yeah, he can probably play. And they see his face, and they're like, he's still a kid, you know. Maybe take it easy on him or whatever. What's he innocent of? Like we talked about this last time. When we say innocent, what we really mean is ignorant. Like he just doesn't know things. He seems to know baseball. That is made clear. What doesn't he know, do you think, in this poem?
Life.
What kind of life?
Their life.
The hard, again, manual labor, then you go get a couple drinks with your buddies, then you go home and your wife is like, everything's broken, and it's your fault. He doesn't know that life. He's innocent of that life. And they notice that. So it must matter to them for some reason. and they say, "Oh yeah, he can play. That's fine. We'll play. It's fine." They're not scared of him all of a sudden. You can pretty easily argue once they notice that fact about him. Well, then that would indicate to me they see that as a kind of an edge, right? The fact that he's innocent of that life. How? And this is a weird question, but can you conceive of a way that living the kinds of lives these guys live and have lived, why would they think that would give them an edge in baseball, do you think? They're experienced. They're all experienced in baseball, but they're experienced elsewhere too, right? How would that give them an edge in a game, do you think? No thoughts on that?
Probably a couple of them are, but there is just the thought of do I have to be the person who answers this? I'm sure someone else will do it.
It's all good. Well, look, again, you may not have an answer to this right now. I'm going to tell you, though, we do actually have, this is an idea. What we're talking about here is something we still have. We may come back to it. But again, at this stage, I just want you recognizing the fact that they see all this when they size him up. That's what they're doing. They're sizing him up. And they decide.
It seems kind of weird that these guys are sizing up a 15-year-old.
Well, they're deciding if he's going to play. But no, it is notable too, but they're kind of asked to. They're like, can he play? Well, the thing that they do then is they size him up, like to decide. And it's the fact that he's built like he can play, but his face says he's not going to be a huge threat that kind of leads them to say okay. But what's interesting is again, all the connotations we have around that face is what tells them he won't be a threat. Like you guys, the way these guys are talking look pretty innocent. They'd be like, oh yeah, you're not gonna, I'm not worried about you because you're not experienced in the way that they are, right? That's interesting. All right. Then we have a hard shift. If you're looking at the first page, it's about halfway through the second stanza on the first page. There is a line that in my heart of hearts, I truly hope you underlined or noted in some way, because it is a hell of a thing that the speaker says about these guys. They're warming up, they're joking about the fat catcher's sex life, all that stuff that guys will say to each other that's terrible. But then after that, we get a very strange observation about their lives. Nobody has anything underlined here?
Sorry, just give me a second.
That's all right. Sounds like you're playing with like a beat maker or
No,
something.
that's my notification sound.
It's all good. Look. These men are normally silent. They're normally brittle and a little angry with the empty promise of their lives. We were just happy. We were just making jokes. What is this? This comes out of nowhere. Again, this is one of those things you may or may not know what to do with, but it is a dramatic shift. You got to note that stuff, right? Empty promise of their lives. We have this phrase actually. Does anybody know what an empty promise is?
It's a lie.
Not keeping up.
Basically. Yeah, you make a promise, but you know you're not going to keep it, right? It's an empty promise.
It's the 50s. Everything is a lie.
Well, easy there. But now we're saying that's their lives. They feel like they were promised something at some point. But now, I guess where they're at, they feel like it was a lie. They feel like it was an empty promise. That's interesting. Especially because it comes out of nowhere. Yeah? It's almost like the speaker wants you to remember the sort of details he's given you in the first stanza. Don't get it twisted, the speaker says. Oh, they're having a good time here. But normally, their life is an empty promise. He's gonna sprinkle that stuff in, right? Just to make sure you remember in the back of their heads always is sadness. So it's worth noting. But we'll also come back to it. Okay. On to the second page. This is, I believe, the third homer. Yeah, this is when he switches. He's gonna bat left-handed. We get another look at one of these guys, the pitcher, who I feel like is the most fun character in the poem. What do we learn about this pitcher? He's tall, he's mean face. It's a weird way to describe somebody. What else do we learn about him? Here at the top of the second page.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
He doesn't give a shit anyway. Phrasing matters. We know that means he doesn't care, but it reads differently, right? When you say he doesn't give a shit anyway. Okay. Because his wife ran off. She didn't just leave him. What's it mean when you run off?
She went away with another man.
You normally have company. Yeah. She ran off 2 years ago. What's the end of that story? She leaves him with something.
Kids.
3 little ones, not just kids. Again, phrasing matters. 3 little ones is harder than 3 kids.
Yeah, that's a good point.
3 little ones, and what else?
The broken down.
A rusted out Dodge with a cracked block.
Yikes.
What's a? Don't get into the nuts and bolts of it. What's a cracked block? Help other people out. What does that mean?
Motor.
Huh?
Motor.
The engine
The engine's
is capital F fucked. Yeah, like it doesn't run. It's not gonna work.
It's one of those situations where it's more expensive to fix it than it is to
Sure.
just get a new car.
Well, why is that an issue for this guy?
Because these are people who rent their houses and clearly don't have a lot of extra cash.
So he's not going to be able to do much about that.
No.
Okay.
Especially since he has 3 little ones too, he's gotta pay for them, so.
He's in a spot.
The 50s suck.
He's in a spot. Yeah. Let's push on that more. Because look, on some level, you if you were to write about this poem, it'd be almost impossible not to note the fact that these men, this pitcher specifically in this case, are in economic trouble. Sure. But you couldn't just do that in the whole paper, because it's like, I mean, yeah, they are. So let's look at this moment in particular. I think it's doing more than just that, right? We say it's a rusted out Dodge. What kind of car does this guy drive? Don't say Dodge. What's this guy drive? Huh? Like a station wagon?
No.
What's he drive? What? Did that man just say luxury car?
Yes.
A luxury car?
They were luxury.
He drives a luxury car.
He had an old one. Before he got broke.
Before he get, when was that?
I am. What?
This is not meant to be overthought. What kind of car is this guy driving?
Beat up car.
A fucking pickup truck. He drives a pickup truck. And we never say it, but most of you anyway, I've never heard that. That actually threw me for a second. How do you know he drives a truck? You knew this before I even asked you, most of you. How did you know that?
Because it's kind of a stereotype.
The kind of guy he is. And the point I'm making to you is that street runs both ways, okay? If you see the kind of guy he is, you assume truck because you associate that life with it. Well, that means you associate truck with that kind of life, right?
I mean, let's.
There's exceptions to everything. But this is my point. What's his truck look like?
Beat up. It's old. It's
Rusted out.
rusted out.
The engine doesn't work.
It's been used and abused.
Might we say something about,
Like the man.
yeah, given the associations this truck has, the connotations it has, what argument might we make about this picture? What does this Dodge symbolize? And I hate to use that verb for this guy.
Broken truck, broken man.
Like as a man. His wife ran off. Now he has to be father and mother with no money and no luxury car or truck besides, right? He was already failing, according to the metric that we laid out in the first stanza. You find out he's doing even worse. And it's because the truck carries the connotations that we kind of alluded to, right? Well, now you're saying all those connotations don't work for this guy. They're broken. They're rusted out. That's body paragraph is what that is. All right. Moving on. So, of course, Mantle, who we learn in a second is Mantle, I do hope those people fuck off. What it is, schools for some reason will have people around to look at schools, which is fine. But they always do it during class, and I'm like, laugh outside. Laugh outside. Anyway, I want to draw your attention to this, and then we'll move on to something that's more important. Did anyone notice how these guys turn around when Mantle homers here at the end of the second stanza? Oh, you guys. They turn around like a chorus line, which is intentional. If you don't know what that is, you could look it up later, but that's intentional. Okay, but now we can get, we have again, another good inventory. We know what the concerns in this poem are, to a degree. Third stanza.
Okay, can we, I don't want to go, but for first, why does it say first line, why make a long story long?
That's a colloquialism. Like he's noting that it's long. Yeah, there's colloquialisms you haven't heard, but he's noting that it's long and joking about it, basically. But we are doing a thing about stories here, which is interesting, although that one would be difficult to...
I just found it odd.
For sure.
Not to me.
Well, no, there's a lot of colloquialism in the poem. That's all the cursing. And the Goodnight Irene and all that stuff, like he talks like these guys do, you know? I think in a lot of places. But I think it's some of that. But anyway, third stanza, they learn that it's Mickey Mantle. And it doesn't mean anything to them then, because he's 15. He's not Mickey Mantle yet. You know what I'm saying? But then the speaker says this, that's the story, and those are the facts, but the facts are not the truth. So all the way back to that third line, he's bringing that idea up here, right? Again, he's drawing a line between facts and truth. Somehow they're different in this poem. And I think you guys have a pretty good beat on facts. I think he's using your definition, right? What happened? Those are facts. Truth is something else. He goes on to say, I think I know what the truth of this story is. Well, thank God, now he's going to tell us what the truth is, right? We're going to have some kind of idea of what he's talking about. I imagine it lying there in the weeds behind that Alles Chalmers. That's the tractor that marks the end of the outfield, right? What's behind that tractor? If it marks where the outfield ends? Any one of those balls he hit. Yeah, I think all 5 of them. Just waiting for the obvious question to be asked, and we're going to have to parse this. Why, oh why in hell didn't they just throw around the kid, walk him, after he hit the third homer? This has got something to do with the truth, according to the speaker, and that seems to be very important, so we got to figure this out. First of all, not everyone is going to understand that question. Can somebody help us out? What do we mean when we say we're going to walk him?
You're not going to pitch to it.
Okay, so in baseball, you can do this accidentally as well, but he's saying intentionally, you're going to walk him. You're not going to give him a pitch he can hit. You're going to give him 4 off the plate. You're going to give him first base. But what that means is he can't homer. You just give him the base. You neutralize him when you do that. It's smart. It's a smart thing to do. And you'll see we do it today. If somebody's on a hot streak, or I'm old enough, I remember Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, they got walked all the time, right? Like that's what you do to those guys, because they're gonna homer. Well, when you intentionally walk somebody like that, aren't you admitting that they're gonna homer?
Yeah.
Well, that seems to be what is on everybody's mind, speaker and the guys in this game, okay? Because they decide not to, right? Now, before we get into reasons why he thinks they don't, we first have to get into what they miss by not doing that. And this is fun. Anybody would have, meaning walked him, the speaker says. Especially 9 men, that's how many people make up a side in baseball. Especially 9 men with disappointed wives and dirty socks and diminishing expectations, for whom winning at anything meant everything. Now we get the wives thing, we've talked about that. Dirty socks just seems rude. Winning at anything meant everything. What does that tell you about these guys? If winning at anything means everything.
They have very low prospects.
So that means what though? How often do they win?
Not much.
Never. It means never. They could have probably won here if they'd walked him. And they didn't. So that means he's trying to convey here, this is a very real decision they made not to do this. It must have mattered. Whatever reason they didn't do it, okay? He goes on though, he's going to tell you what winning would have looked like. Men who knew how to play the game, they had talent. They could have gone home with their little $2 side bets and stride into the house singing, "If you've got the money, honey, I've got the time," with a bottle of Southern Comfort under their arms, and grab Dixie or Mayella up and dance across the gray linoleum as if it were V-Day all over again. All right. Now there's a lot there. They're singing a very particular song, which is interesting. They come home with a bottle of liquor. They're going to scoop their wife up and dance across the gray linoleum as if it were V-Day all over again. So they're celebrating. And according to the speaker, they go back to a particular time. And it has to be significant if he gives us a particular day.
V-Day.
What is V-Day?
It's when we won the Pacific campaign. Well, I guess
It's the end of World War II. Does anybody know what V-Day stands for?
Victory.
Victory Day. If you want to talk about winning, Victory Day is a pretty good spot to go back to. Yeah? And to the best of your ability, you got to try to put yourself in these guys' shoes a little bit. So think about this. When you go to war, at that time anyway, get drafted or whatever, 18, 19, 20, something like that, your age. And you go and you fight. And then at some point the war ends, we won. That probably feels pretty good. You come home, you're scooping your wife or your girlfriend up. Why are they doing that, first of all? That's kind of a weird thing to do. Why do you think they're doing that? Sure. Happy in what way?
They feel
To be home? What?
They feel powerful.
In a way, yeah. What'd you say, JB?
Happy to be alive.
For sure. That's a victory in and of itself, is it not?
Yeah.
The war isn't just over, but I'm here after the fact. That's pretty good. Why are they scooping her up, though?
Because she's been away from
For
her
how long?
for-
How long do you think they were gone?
5 years.
Years. My last class said months. I had a good laugh. Years they were gone. So yeah, they're pretty stoked to come back to all of it. Home, the wife or girlfriend, all of it they come back to. And they've won. And the speaker says, if they won this game, it would have been just for a moment like that day. So they come back, they're like 23, 24, 25, something like that, And now they're like 40 something. And they haven't won today. And it sounds like they really don't win ever. What does the trajectory between these 2 points look like, do you think? Like if this is V-Day, where should I put this hand? Way down here? Yeah, they basically peaked in their early to mid-20s. And he's saying, again, he's trying to help you understand, the speaker is trying to help you understand the weight of the decision not to walk this kid. Apparently, they give up all that. They're going to get to feel that again for just a second. They get rid of all that not to walk him, right? They sacrifice that, which is interesting. And now we can get to all the reasons, apparently, that they don't. The speaker says, but they did not. In a poem made of long sentences, but they did not. Short sentence. They did not because they were men and this was a boy. All right. That's one of the reasons, apparently. What on earth, what do you think the deal is with that? Why does that matter? They were men, he was a boy. Why don't they intentionally walk him because of that?
Maybe they figured they could beat him.
They don't wanna make his ego too big.
Well, it's got way less to do with him and more to do with them, but you're on the right train of thought. The speaker makes the point, they would not have considered walking him until after the third homer. Right about that time is when, that's when he switched hits, by the way. Right about that time is when all delusions of beating him, I think, kind of go out the window. You homer 3 straight times, switch hitting at one point. That's not, clearly, you're on some other level, right? What's the deal with them being men and him being a boy? Why can't they walk him?
But it's kind of like once you walk somebody, you admit that they're better, and they don't want to do that.
They're admitting he's better than them when they do that. Why can't they do that with him? If they're men and he's a boy, apparently. What's the issue?
They're supposed to be better than him
Why?
because they're older. They're older. And older men, even if older men are supposed to be.
Because they've got massive, both equal parts superiority and inferiority complexes at the same time.
Maybe. Let's stick to the line.
But they do, that because they are men and they've had more experience, they're like, "No, we can't lose to this
Good.
boy."
And that takes us all the way back to that discussion about angelic blonde hair, right? That business. They cannot admit defeat to this kid who doesn't even know what it is to be a man, according to these guys, right? Can't admit defeat to that. Now, there's questions as to why and what that might mean, but you can't get there without opening that door first, right? Apparently, that's the first reason. Second reason, and they did not, because sometimes after making love, after smoking their Chesterfields in the cool silence and listening to the big bands on the radio that sounded so glamorous, so distant, they glanced over at their wives and noticed the lines growing heavier around the eyes and mouth. All right, that's one reason. Let's stop there. Apparently, they don't walk him because of something to do with their wives. What's going on? They glance over at their wives. What do they notice?
That she's getting older.
Yeah. The hell's that got to do with walking this kid?
They're getting older.
Okay.
But
How's that keep him from walking him, do you think?
Want to prove himself.
Huh?
They just want to prove himself to the wives.
What's that got to do with it? Well, you could tie that to the wives a little bit. But I mean, it seems like we're talking about aging, right?
Maybe they're not able to. Like, didn't you say they gotta throw the ball?
Oh, I could walk him. That's actually all I would do. I don't know if I can get across the plate. Yeah, walking somebody's easy. That is intentionally going, I'm not going to throw it where I'm supposed to. That's all you got to do, walk. We could all do it. They choose not to. So again, the question is, what's that got to do with their wives getting older, they're getting older? So what, right? We can skip it for now, but again, according to the speaker, that matters. The other reason that's kind of lumped in with this one, they feel what their wives felt. That Les Brown and Glenn Miller and all those dancing couples, and in fact, all possibility of human gaiety and lightheartedness were as far away and unreachable as Times Square or the Avalon Ballroom. Why don't they walk him, according to this? It's got something to do with Times Square. They're listening to stuff on the radio. And I guess people are dancing too, some kind of show, on the radio. They say it's far away, unreachable even. Times Square, that is. What else is far away and unreachable? We're gonna get to that. But how do you get to that, JB? What do they literally, I just want to, because we got to connect it to the poem. What do they literally say is far away and unreachable? All right, somebody help him out. You are right, though, but he said winning. But we got to get there from the line. We can. What's far away for these guys?
Luxury.
Huh?
Luxury.
Yeah, kind of, in a way, sure. That word keeps coming. That's weird. You guys are weird. I mean, you're not wrong, but it's just funny to me. What do we say in the poem? What is far away? Not just Times Square, not just Avalon Ballroom.
Lightheartedness.
All possibility of human gaiety and lightheartedness.
All happiness.
The possibility of happiness is as far away and unreachable as Times Square and the Avalon Ballroom. That's why they don't walk him.
He is.
Sure. Let's stop there for a second, and we can connect it to that. But before, let's take the easy one first. Well, they're both maybe Times Square. Where are we again in this poem? We're in Oklahoma. Now look, last I checked, they're far away, but you could get there, right?
Yeah.
According to the speaker, no. He doesn't say distant, he doubles down, he says unreachable. They cannot get there. Why?
Maybe it goes back to the financial thing.
Okay, how so?
Can't afford to travel.
Maybe can't afford to get there.
Can't even afford a house. Can't even afford to fix a car. Can barely afford.
A New York trip is probably out of the question. Yeah. And look, I mean, real talk, even if they somehow had the money or hitchhike, when are they going to go? They're going to take off from work? You know what I mean? They can't go. The lives they're in, they're locked in. So they can listen to this stuff on the radio. They can hear how other people are happy. But they can't go. They can't see it themselves. And with what the speaker has given us up to now, you could attach that to win. I think they're one and the same. The idea of winning in the game, then, in a way, gets tied into like winning at life, right? We have an idea of what a winner looks like, right?
Not really.
Well, I'm saying it doesn't look like these guys.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. The poem, the speaker seems to agree. More so, he seems to agree that they would agree too. And apparently, And apparently that's why they don't walk him as well. They know what their lives are, so they don't walk him, which is interesting.
So what, they're already so they're accepting the fact that they're losers so much to the point that even when they see the chance to win openly, they deny themselves that?
I wouldn't say it's that simple. We got two more reasons, but it's attached to the fact that they're not going to have those things. It's something about it. Let's do the last two, and we'll see if we can solve it. They did not, because of the gray linoleum lying there in the half dark. The free calendar from the local mortuary that said one day was pretty much like another. We're going to try. If I put these lines in front of you, the ones I just read, what are the most interesting details here?
Mortuary.
Mortuary is pretty interesting. How do we get to mortuary?
They're older.
No. I'm saying like in the line. How do we get there?
It's a free calendar.
They have a free calendar.
Meaning they've been there.
Yeah, or they could have gotten the mail. I mean, but they get a free calendar from the local mortuary that says what? One day's pretty much like another. So on some level, on the one hand, we're talking about routine, right?
Sure prints a calendar like that.
You get calendar. It's just a business. They print crap because it's advertising. But look, on the one hand, if one day is pretty much like another, we're saying every day is the same in your life. And we just talked about that, right? One of the primary reasons all human gaiety and lightheartedness is unreachable is the routine nature of their lives. They cannot get out. One day is pretty much like another. Not one of those days are you going to New York. You know what I'm saying? But there's another thing. Dalton, where do we get this calendar? What kind of mortuary?
Local.
The
Local mortuary. Again, that's intentional. We could just say the mortuary. He wants you to recognize it's local. What do you imagine? What do you imagine the relationship is like for these guys with the local mortuary? What is it to them? The local mortuary to people in this town.
It's a reminder.
Yeah, I mean that one day we're all gonna die, I suppose. What'd you say, man?
Your last thought.
For who? Why? Huh?
They feel like they're gonna die. They're just waiting to die.
Yeah, I mean that's true of all of us in a way, but I'll put it to you this way: how do these people know they're gonna end up at that local mortuary?
Because they know they're not gonna escape. They're not gonna go anywhere else.
They're not leaving this town. Yeah. So it's a local mortuary. That's the one they're going to, and everybody they know is going to that local mortuary. Last thing I want to draw your attention to before we move to the last reason. It says one day is pretty much like another. That's a weird thing to include. The pretty much. Again, we don't need to say that. One day is like another. We're talking about routine. Yeah. What does pretty much mean? We have this phrase. What does pretty much mean? Like if somebody asks me if my kids are well behaved, I'll be like, I mean, pretty much. Do what?
For the most part, they do.
Yeah. And then occasionally they're fucking bananas. Yeah. So pretty much basically implies generally, like with exceptions. So if the local mortuary's calendar says every day is pretty much like another, well, that's implying there are exceptions. What do you think those exceptions might be?
Days when they go play baseball.
Some of those, yeah, probably. They're a little bit different. What other days?
Maybe like certain holidays, maybe like they're right there.
Days of funerals.
When they die. Yeah. That's when they get to escape this routine. Occasionally they get to do it, I guess, when they play baseball, sure. And also when they die. Every day is pretty much like another, with a few exceptions. Okay. The last reason, and this one's a big one. I have to find it, hang on. And they did not, because they had gone through a depression and a war that had left them with the idea that being a man in the eyes of their fathers and everyone else had cost them too goddamn much just to lay it at the feet of a 15-year-old boy. It's a lot. We're going to take it in parts. We'll do the first bit first. It says they had gone through a depression and a war.
Great Depression.
Great Depression, World War II. Also commonly known as the war to end all wars. But two pretty big, we'll say pretty hairy life experiences.
Yeah.
And it says they've gone through them as well. What does it mean when you say I went through, to say you've gone through a
Not
thing?
only did they live through it, but they openly were affected by it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's the idea of living through. It's a survival, right?
They survived. Yeah, they survived both the Great Depression.
Which implies they might not have. Yeah? Like, it's that level of hardship. I know sometimes we have rough Tuesdays or whatever, but Great Depression, World War II, those are things that we can't even really envision, like what it would have been to go through that. And they did. Apparently that's got something to do with walking this guy. The fact that they did, right? Going through those things left them with the idea that being a man in the eyes of their fathers and everyone else. Now let's stop there. The hell does that mean? Apparently living through the hard things they lived through left them with an idea, okay? We got that. The idea is being a man in the eyes of their fathers and everyone else. How do you guys read that? What does that mean, do you think?
portraying to the classic envisionment of masculinity in a hardworking American man, Horatio Alger, all that stuff,
Yeah.
costs them too much.
Well, we're not at cost yet. Slow down, slow down. How do they know they're men, according to this line, according to this idea?
Fought in the war, they play baseball,
Yeah, but that.
they're blue collar, they're hardworking.
What does the line tell us, though? How do they know they're men? Being a man in the eyes of their fathers and everyone else. How do they know they're men?
Based off of how others view them.
Good. The idea that seems central to how they define their masculinity is according to how other people judge them, see them, measure them, right? Do I look the part? Do I act the part according to the people around me, right? Is what we're saying. So to recap, going through those super hard times they went through left them with the idea that their masculinity is kind of judged or measured, most especially by their fathers. They get a specific call out. That's pretty interesting. And everyone else. So because of that, it had cost them too goddamn much just to lay it at the feet of this 15-year-old boy. What are they laying at his feet?
Reality.
No. That's everything. That doesn't mean anything. What are they laying at his feet if they walk him? Again, all this is couched in not walking him. What's up?
The cost of the game.
Yeah. Well, he's saying they did not. It would have cost them blah, blah, blah. They're going to lay it at his feet if they walk him. So they would have won. They would have won the game, but it sounds like they would have lost something else. What are they laying at his feet if they walk him?
Respect.
Like that draw.
These things are,
Their masculinity and the viewpoint of others.
yeah. I was going to say all those things are kind of tied to that. Why do you think that is if they walk him?
Because the pansying out.
Be very careful with your verbs. Yeah. What do we mean by that? Like we've said, if they walk him, they admit defeat. They admit he's better, right?
They admit he's better, they admit he's more manly than them
How?
by the viewpoint of others.
How?
Oh, men win or are supposed to win in classical views.
In what? But what context are we talking about? They're supposed to be better than him at what?
Baseball.
Fucking baseball. A game. But it's a sport. It's athletic. They're 40. He's 15. Most of us would look a little, wouldn't we, even now, look a little askance, like, if we were hearing the story, like, yeah, we walked this 15-year-old, he was killing us, you're like, we would kind of judge them, wouldn't we? For sure. I'm not saying it's right, but I am saying that seems to be a thing that we still have, okay? So apparently, they do not walk him to maintain their masculinity in the way that they've defined it up to this point, right? And it's in the eyes of others. It's doing things at a cost. It says that it cost them too goddamn much maintaining this masculinity, apparently. So it's not just not walking him. That's one of those capital M metaphors, right? Not walking this kid. They've been doing that their whole lives. Not walking things. Apparently it's cost them something. In this case, it cost them the game, okay? Do you guys have any idea? I know it's very loaded.
Not taking the easy way out.
Okay, that's exactly what we're talking about though, right? Like in the game, that's what we're talking about, but then also generally, right? In their lives, not taking the easy way out. What does that mean though? Like if we apply it to what we know about their lives, how they maintain their masculinity with that idea as kind of central to it, if that makes sense. I think that'll help us figure out whatever this cost is. No? Okay, let's try it a different way. This one's always hard for people, by the way. It's okay. We'll make it very simple. I would hope it's clear to this point that the game and the conduct of these men in the game is a metaphor for their entire lives. Is that at least clear?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. They've lost the game. Again, it's a metaphor for their entire lives. So they're lost. But they've kept their masculinity, both in the game as well as outside of it. Well, then the question is the mechanism. What matters is the mechanism. They did not take the easy way out, and they lost. Both of them. Okay? It causes them to lose the game. That's the cost of not walking him. How else have they lost in their lives? We've talked about this.
Lost their opportunities, their
What kind of, when we say opportunities, what do we mean?
to make a better lot for themselves.
How do we define somebody has a better life?
They're more successful, they have more options
How do we define any of that, though? We measure it according to something.
Income.
based on.
Fucking money.
Yeah.
Right? We say at the start of the poem, their wives are complaining about money and broken Kenmores. They rent their homes. All of this comes back to money and not having it. Right? Well, we know what their lives are. They work those blue-collar jobs. They go to drink after. They look and act like men. They're playing the role. They sound like they're doing a really excellent job, right? But according to the speaker, the truth is, at least part of the truth, is all of that costs something too. What don't they get? We say that they don't get opportunities because they don't have money. What don't they get as a result of those opportunities? Missing them. What aren't they allowed to have? Yeah. Well, the speaker tells us, though, is he attaches it to something. It's far away. It's unreachable. Happiness. Money can't buy you happiness? I never met a person that that's true for. My favorite comedian I like is like, money can buy a jet ski. I dare you not to smile on a jet ski. It's fun. I don't care who you are. But the point is a good one, which is these guys have been denied opportunities, right? When we say that, what we mean is money's attached to it, but we just opportunities to be happy, do what you want to do, live the life you want to live. They don't get that. They're in this town. They're going to die there. He tells us that. They're going to die there, and that's it. What can't they do about that? What are they not allowed to do about their plight if they're going to remain men? They can't say anything about it. They're normally silent, normally a little brittle about the empty promise of their lives, he tells us in the second stanza. Yeah? They don't say anything about it. They just keep it. Now we're back to that empty promise. What might they have felt like they were promised? Maybe when they got back on V-Day, at their height, right? War's just ended. Wife's still here. I'm still here. Things are looking good. What are they promised, do you think? There. Better life? How are they going to get that better life, do you think?
Hard work.
Hard work, what'd you say? Yeah, you're on the other side of all this awfulness, for sure. But then part of that is too, right? Like, again, we have this narrative. You work hard, you make something better of yourself, you're successful. It's the American dream. We have that. The poem suggests, for some people anyway, for these guys, it was an empty promise. And they're bitter about that. They did what they were supposed to do. They've been doing it for decades. And they're still here. And it's not getting better. Yeah. And apparently, that's why they don't walk him. Because it's all they have. Lastly, yeah, I knew we wouldn't get to that thing that I sent you, so don't worry about it. We have to talk about this. He says there is one thing more, the speaker does, here at the end of the third stanza. Though it is not a fact, that means it's what? In this poem. If it's not a fact, it's the truth. Look at you paying attention. Very good. Truth at this point, if it's not clear, is like an inference. It's a fact that most of you would like to leave right now, because I know we're getting near the end of time, right? That's a fact. But the truth is, you don't get to decide. No. The truth is something underneath, right? It's something you infer, it's something you realize when investigating the facts, okay? So the speaker says, this is the truth. When I see my friend's father, right, this is the pitcher, by the way. We learned the guy that's been telling the story is the pitcher. So that's all kinds of loaded. He's thinking about his Dodge, his half-orphaned children, all this stuff. This is the last truth we're hit with. This is the only time that he has seen the vast gap between talent and genius. He has seen, as few have in the harsh light of an Oklahoma Sunday, the blonde and blue-eyed bringer of truth who will not be easily forgiven. So apparently, Mantle somehow shows these guys a truth that they will not forgive him for. And with the last 5 minutes that we have, we're going to try to figure it out. What does Mantle show these guys? There's a really easy observation we can make.
He's gonna be the one that leaves that town
How's he going to leave the town?
by playing baseball. Playing the games they grew up, they were good at.
That they've played way more than him, right? Just simple math would tell you, if they're in their 40s and he's 15, they played a lot more baseball than he has. They should be better. Why? Why should they be better? Experience. There's that thing again, isn't it?
They've been told that they should be better.
Well, no, I mean, we all have. If I played baseball for 20 years and you played for 5 and you smoked me, I would be furious. What is this shit? I'm like throwing the bat. Like, this is, right? It's not fair.
When I say the gap between talent and genius,
So what's the deal with Mantle? Why is he
he's
better?
talented.
He's just naturally better. He's gifted. We have that word, right? Even think about that word. To say that you're gifted, what does that really mean? No. Think about, what is a gift?
Give it to you.
It's given to you. Does it sound like these guys have been given much?
No.
No. This was given to him. And he's gonna get out. He's gonna go to fucking New York. We were just talking about that. That's where all the happiness is. He's gonna get to go. Just because he was born different. Basically. And that's the truth they can't forgive him for. That's how the world works. They live in a world where they were promised that they work hard enough, they can make something of themselves. And now they feel like it's empty, and now they meet this kid who's gonna get all the stuff they've ever dreamed of and more, simply based around the fact that he was born that way. What the fuck?
Bro, this is some real all this dust shit. Shit, man. This is
Do what?
depressing.
I think it is too. Dang. So anyway, it's a longer poem. I kind of thought we wouldn't have time to talk about paragraphs. I do apologize about that. But again, everything we looked at, every line, any one of those could be the start to a body paragraph, right? You dive in the way that we did, and you guys can do it. You can fight me sometime, but you guys can do it, okay? You think about details just like we've talked about, and what are we learning about these guys? What are we learning about their motivations? Not just, I guess, how they see the world, but why, right? If you can get to that why, you're headed in a good direction. For next time, we're not reading a poem. We're doing our last poem on Monday. I have thesis handouts on CourseDen because we'll talk more about the papers starting next time, okay? And a discussion board. For the discussion board, there's instructions up there, but basically I want you to make a post that addresses the prompt I've given you on CourseDen and then to respond to 2 of your classmates. Again, at this stage, we're just really starting to generate paper stuff. We're going to really start working on that on Wednesday. Sound good?
So to write, so you have a thing up on course, then
Yes.
you write something, then we respond to other people's writing.
At least 2 people, yes.
That's two, before class was over.
Thereabouts, yes.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you guys. I'll see you then.